Your life will never be less complicated than it is right now.
I was constantly getting promoted. And meanwhile, my personal life was a dumpster fire that was floating down the pretty river.
The systems that I was using at work every day, I was putting those in my briefcase and just kind of setting them in the corner and dealing with stuff in a very reactionary mode at home. For all my training and skills and abilities as a leader, I wasn't maximizing it at home. How many more decisions like that are draining us of our time? The one resource we cannot make more of, the one resource we get to use once.
Talk real shift. Backbone people, that's the gift. This is your seat, take your shift.
Welcome back to Talk Real Shift. I'm your host, Devin Froscheiser. On today's episode, we're going to talk about a different kind of shift. Not the shift that happens from the floor to the boardroom, but the shift that happens outside of work. Stay tuned as I talk with Joe LaRussa, founder of Homegrown Leadership, as he shares stories and vulnerable moments of the leadership that takes place outside of work. Joe, I was up all night. Okay, not up all night, but I was constantly waking up, falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep. And I talk in my sleep, and I'm pretty sure I was waking up thinking and talking, what do I want to intro this to be? Because you're the founder of Homegrown Leadership, and I have watched and experienced my own personal life explode and blow up for a multitude of reasons, right? It takes two to tango.
Sure.
But I didn't know, like, where do I want to start the conversation? And so I figured, I want to start the conversation. How did you get into this? Tell me of your journey from automotive and leadership to where you're at today.
First of all, thank you very much for having me.
Of course.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. This is always fun to talk about, but it's even more so when people who can relate to what goes on in the shop floor. So being an automotive person, you know, there's a lot of situational leadership opportunities. And what I noticed was a lot of times my folks, my people, my teammates, when they would struggle at work, they weren't struggling at work because they didn't have what they needed to get their job done, or they weren't well trained, or they were having poor communication. What I noticed was there was always something lingering in the back of their minds or something weighing on them personally outside of work. And usually it was at home. So the way I got into this was I was providing leadership coaching as a value-added service for my previous employers.
Okay.
So because it was in my interest to keep my team at a high-functioning level.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't really matter where the source of the frustration or the source of weight was coming from. My obligation as their leader was to help them get through that so that they could return to a high-performing level.
Because shift happens
Every day.
Everywhere, right? And I think I've shared a little bit with you about some of my own personal shift, where I was having a phenomenal career, right? I mean, I was constantly getting promoted. I was going from, various jobs where sometimes there was a little bit of imposter syndrome because I don't feel like I'm qualified to be here, but somehow somebody is like, cool, congratulations, you get to go do something that you've never done before, have fun. And meanwhile, my personal life was a dumpster fire that was floating down the pretty river, right? And I wish I would have had somebody like you. So let's talk some real shift. Tell me about, what was that pivotal moment? So there was, life happened, right?
Yep.
You decided to get into the consulting space. What made you focus on the personal side of it?
So the personal side of it came in, as a young married and a new father, I had a toddler at home, and, the automotive industry is notoriously cyclical.
Very.
Notoriously cyclical. And my position at the time had gotten swept up in one of those downturn cycles. So, of course, like a good soldier, I'm like, I can do something else. You can move me over here. You can move me over there. Like, hey, the decision's final. This is what's happening. You're impacted. It is what it is. Okay. Well, when I was driving home and starting to figure out, well, now what do I do, right? I got to figure out a next step. It dawned on me that the systems that I was using at work every day, I was putting those in my briefcase and just kind of setting them in the corner and dealing with stuff in a very reactionary mode at home. And it occurred to me on that drive home that day, because I had time to think now. I wasn't thinking about what I had to do tomorrow. I wasn't thinking about the meetings I hadn't scheduled. Wasn't thinking about, because I had been freed from that that cognitive load had been relieved by an externality. So I was able to just release that. And now I was able to think about my household.
Right.
And that's when it hit me that for all my training and skills and abilities as a leader, I wasn't maximizing it at home. And that's what led me to Homegrown Leadership, helping frustrated parents and spouses who are crushing it at work but have chaos at home reclaim hundreds of hours, reclaim thousands of dollars, find more peace, have their household be a source of pride, a source of energy, as opposed to a drain or a source of frustration or anxiety or anger. Like, those are the things that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not how the movie is supposed to end. The movie is supposed to end with you going home, and that's the place that
you're happily ever after.
That fills you up. Yes, that the happily ever after.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, for me, it was. I think it started even in school, right? It was like, okay, I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. I know that, but I will tenaciously outwork almost everybody else in that room, right? And so even in school, I had to apply myself 10 times harder than my peers because I just didn't get it, right? And so I threw myself into school. I threw myself into my career. And it was like home was just, I didn't want to be there, right? I just didn't want to be there. So I put all of my focus and my attention throughout college. And, you know, I got married. I walked across stage and got married like a week later. And then started working right away, right? And so it was just school, work. And by the time I would get home, there was nothing left, right? Like, I was a shell and a husk, particularly in manufacturing. When you were a leader in manufacturing, did you work an 8-hour workday?
It demands a lot. It demands a lot from everybody that works there.
Right.
Yep.
And so let's talk some real shift stories. Tell me about some of these stories that you've heard that you've been able to go from the situation that I just shared with you to running it like an efficient operating machine.
Well, the situation starts with my own household. I mean, the stories that I share the most are the journey that I traveled myself. And in that same scenario, you know, when you're disrupted and your source of revenue for your household is completely, shattered or gone, you start to say to yourself, okay, well, if this were work,
what would I do?
What would I do? And how would I avoid this from happening again? As I said, automotive industry is notoriously cyclical. Right. This is a well-known fact. It's boom and bust. Another one is coming. How do we prepare ourselves for the next one? So during that time between jobs at that point in my career, I also sat down at home and applied all of the things that I had learned in the workplace to my household financially, and saying, okay, we're going to make sure that no matter what happens with me professionally, this household can run with no change for fill in the blank number of months, weeks, whatever.
Okay, so what was your goal? What is that fill in the blank?
So
what's your goal?
So this is a conversation among the household leaders.
Okay.
And my wife and I sat down at the time and said, this is the blank we have to fill in.
Right.
Now, I'm a little bit risk tolerant. My wife is a little bit less so.
Fair.
That's fine.
Right.
So now we had to communicate and come to a compromise, and we said at least 3 months.
Okay.
4 months is better.
Right.
Because we looked at the transitions that I had made career-wise, and I had never been out of work for more than 90 days.
Okay.
So for sure we have to cover at least 3 months. Now, to raise the comfort level a little bit higher, right, we decided to push that to 5 months.
Okay.
So that no matter what happens, we've got 5 months where nothing has to change.
Right.
And that's just at the beginning. If it was a prolonged period, let's say that there's a huge economic problem, economic recession, big external event that can't be controlled, a pandemic, whatever.
Life happens.
Life happens.
Yep.
how do we make sure that even after that period, we could still make adjustments and survive longer? If we need survival mode, we can activate that. But we wanted to keep ourselves in a position where nothing would have to change for a certain period of time. So that was system one. Financial management in the household had to look more like in industry. Nobody wants a warranty or recall to happen. But guess what? Every single automotive company has sitting on their balance sheet.
Yep.
The recall warranty reserve pot. So that if something goes bad, there's already a bucket of money set aside to handle these things. So just transferring that concept to the household was thing one. So that's one.
So you set up a whole P&L. Your household was a P&L.
Balance sheet, P&L. We report the P&L monthly.
Okay.
It's a very quick review. The annual reviews tend to be a little bit longer as they are, but we don't just look 1 year out. At work, we think 3 to 5 years out.
Right, you're always forecasting.
The CapEx plan, we're going to build a new plant. We're going to buy new equipment. We're going to grow sales. We're going to do these things.
Yep.
Though that requires long-term planning. Well, if we can't get to Saturday at home, I mean,
just fair.
You ever had this conversation?
Yes.
What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? And you waste a half an hour
arguing or
having a conversation,
trying
to solve
because nobody wants to
the simplest decision you could possibly make. And at work, we're thinking about where are we going to build a plant? What are the criteria? We're trying to site select or pick a supplier or source a production contract and making millions of dollar decisions.
Millions.
And at home, this is like literally a $25 decision if it's at the grocery store. It's a $50 decision if we go out.
Fair.
And we can't get there. So that kind of elevation out of this tactical, reactionary mode was critical for us. So financial management, team communication, figuring out what matters most, being aligned. You look at a C-suite, the CFO, the CIO, the CEO, the COO, all these C people, they've got to be aligned. They've got to they don't have to agree.
They have to see
they just have
the same way.
Correct. They have to see, the C-suite has to see it the same way. And that's also true at home. If there's not alignment, you're already in a contentious posture.
Right. That's fair. What do you do if there's not alignment? How do you, advise people to get that alignment? Because I'm assuming the communication alignment needs to come before any of the other alignment, because if you're not heading towards the same vision and goal.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is what happens at work. The very first thing that you're trained on when you arrive in an organization.
You should be the vision and the mission.
The mission, vision, and values of the organization. Yeah. This is the very first thing you're presented with. It's page 1, paragraph 1. You're given this document that this is how and this is part of the culture here. This is what we value. This is how we approach our work. And this is the vision for the organization. So one other exercise we went through is we did a family mission statement and we wrote down the 8 values that matter the most in our household. And those values are what we filter our decision-making through. How we manage relationships, how we prioritize our financial resources, how we prioritize our time resources. And everything is filtered through those values, because at work, it's the same. We would say, okay, this is what our values are. This is the mission. This is the vision. First of all, are we attacking the right decisions as a leadership team? Or are we allowing ourselves to be pulled to something?
Distracted.
Correct. This is thing 1. Thing 2, if we are going to make a decision, through what are we going to filter it? And how are we going to use what we believe to filter our decision making? So this family mission statement, family value statement, family goals, it really clarified, because my wife and I, we were from different family of origin. We had different cultural upbringings, a lot of differences. And it really allowed us to get on the same page. And now we could communicate about those differences because we knew we were grounded in the values for the household.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you share your families?
I can. I wouldn't want to bore the audience with all of them, but there's one value where we say we meet our commitments. We meet our commitments. We simply let our yes be yes and our no be no. And if we can't meet a commitment on the rare occasion where we cannot do what we say, we immediately inform the person we committed to that we can't do it, and we do everything that we can to make it right. Everything. If we can't do something, we say we can't do it.
We own it.
And then if we can do it and we're going to do it, we do it no matter what comes up after we've decided. We've made a commitment and we will live up to that because we're raising 2 small leaders in the household.
Right.
And we have to show them, why don't we, this is hard. Why are we still doing this? Because we said we would. This is a very simple illustration, but that value, we don't say yes to everything anymore because that was a frustration point. I'm Mr. We can do that. We can do that. We can do that. And my wife's like, I don't know what people you're going to activate. This does not work where you have an army of shop floor people. You don't have an army of production workers that you can just move around and get these things done. Before you say yes to more, we need to discuss how we're going to get that done. And that was a very important discussion that we had after we said, because we both agreed, if we say yes, we are all in.
We are committed to it.
We're all in. But if we can't, and we said yes, now it's a source of frustration,
right,
and disconnection.
Your word is everything, right? I mean, at the end of the day, my mom has a handful of sayings that she would tell to us, and a couple of them like stick with me. And one of them is like, you maintain your integrity, right? Like your integrity is everything. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you do. Maintain your integrity, and that's what you guys are doing with that commitment, right? You guys are maintaining your integrity as you're speaking with and advising clients, right? These are C-suite, highly successful people, right? They appear to have it figured out.
Yeah.
And then us at the bottom, the peasants of the world, as I like to call us, we feel like that is sometimes untouchable. We feel like our lives are the dumpster fire rolling down the river. And they have some secret sauce going on that they can balance it. Because some of my biggest arguments are that there's no true thing as work-life balance. And before we get into that, what are some of the vulnerable moments from them that you could share that would make everybody else feel like it's okay, you're not alone?
For sure. The biggest thing that usually it manifests as frustration, anger, anxiety, and it's loosed in the workplace. If a leader is, losing their shift on you at work, it's not because of work. There's something else that's going on. Yeah. A. B, nobody wants to go to therapy for this when therapy is not the answer. This is a lack of systems. And when that realization happens, or when that light bulb shines in their mind about, well, yeah, I have all these systems and structures in place over here, you would never run around the workplace and have individual conversations with every single person you have to talk to and then run back around to verify and clarify.
You'd never get anything done.
No, nothing would happen. You'd run around all day and literally be talking all day. So we structure communication at work. We have weekly team meetings. We have daily stand-ups. There's a communication plan about how topics get, and part of that is to organize what gets discussed. We don't discuss a long-term strategy topic in a stand-up meeting.
No.
And we don't deal with tactical things that are going on the shop floor in a strategic planning session. First thing. So these folks that I speak with and that I help, they bring their anger and frustration, and then the very first thing we have to get down to is this a systems problem, which usually is the light bulb moment when they realize that it's a lack of systems. And then the other connection is simply, well, you're able to use all of that over here in this sphere. What is preventing you? What is stopping you from implementing it in this other sphere? What if you could just take what's making you successful here and move it over here? And what is stopping you from doing that? And they honestly, the answer 99.9% of the time is, I don't know. I never thought, it just never occurred. Home is just supposed to be this thing that runs itself. Right? It's just an assumption.
Right.
Because, and there's no manual, there's no education, there's no training. Like we watch how our parents did it, or we watch how a neighbor's family does it, or a trusted family member, whatever. We see examples, but we're never really given the opportunity to train on running a household. And for those people who may think to themselves, Well, I don't want to be CEO. I don't want to be, some people are satisfied. I knew an engineer. All he wanted to do was be the best air induction engineer in the company. And he was given the biggest programs, the most complicated designs, because all he wanted to do was be the best engineer. So he got all of that. He still's got to go home just like everybody else and lead his household. The fundamental economic and social unit of our society. If household leadership is strong, neighborhoods are strong. If neighborhoods are strong, communities are strong. If communities are strong, and so it goes. So even though you may not have the aspiration that other, people might have, you still have a responsibility and obligation to run your household. And that's a kind of a social contract. When you're in a dispute with a neighbor, you're not criticizing their taste. You're you're sensing the disconnect in the way they lead their household versus yours. Companies are the same.
Right.
They're led differently. Right. Some it's results at all costs. Results are all that matter. And then other companies, how we get those results matters. And so it is at home. But yeah, that's what I see from these folks when they come. It presents as anger, anxiety, frustration, and unpacking that, it's typically, well, tell me about the systems that you have in place. Well, what do you mean systems? Well, you have systems in place at work. Do you not have those at home? Well, no. Well, why? Well, I don't know. I never thought about it that way. This is the typical conversation.
Interesting. Okay. What system do they typically implement first?
So the sequence that I coach is get a hold of your time first.
Okay.
So the typical household leader is able to spend 2 hours a day leading and managing their household. Because if you think about it, you're at work.
It's about, I was going to say, this seems about right.
You're sleeping, you got to eat, personal hygiene matters. These are things that have to get done.
Right.
So when you take it all out, you're left with about 2 hours a day to lead or manage your household. Mm-hmm. And if you were to take the leadership of a household and put a salary to it.
Ooh, please, let's do it.
It's a $140,000 job a year that we have to get done in 2 hours a day. Now, this is the pinnacle of efficiency. I have to run a societal and economic unit on 2 hours a day, the equivalent of a $140,000 management job. So the very first thing we have to get a hold of is time. Earlier we talked about, let's have a dinner conversation. What do you want for dinner? Okay, well, if you destroy 30 minutes of your 2 hours trying to make a
simple decision, what should be simple,
that decision should already have been made because it's systematized. We have a system.
You're pre-planning. That's your strategy. That's your weekly strategy. I'm following along.
And then the startup meeting is, this ingredient went bad, or we didn't have this on the shopping list. Something happened.
Pivoting.
And the stand-up meeting is where you have the flexibility in your system to adapt to external things that are going to disrupt your plan, just like at work.
Wow.
So the very first thing is we get a hold of time, and I take the client through, a series of steps and tools that look a lot like at work, but are right-sized for the household. So visual management of your time. If it's not on the family calendar, it doesn't exist. Don't ask me for a ride. Don't ask me for money. Don't ask me for resources. If it's not on the calendar, it hasn't been planned, just like at work. You come with the great idea. It's not in the budget. We didn't plan for that. I don't have headcount for that. The answer is no.
Right.
There's a process to get something up and get it resourced. Very first step is it's got to be on that calendar over there. So making these things visible, getting hold of your time first. Then it's resource management. So money comes next. And then relationships. 1 in 3 people are reporting that they feel more isolated than ever, even though we're more connected than we've ever been.
It is interesting, right? Because we've got a ton of social media that connects us, but I like to say it's like fake connectedness because you're not actually sharing anything of value. You're sharing what you're willing to share, not actually of anything that's vulnerable.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Interesting.
So those are the steps. Get a hold of your time because that's the promise. I mean, Devin, if I asked you, if I could give you back 200 hours a year for the rest of your life, would that be something you'd be interested in?
100%.
There you have it. And I've calculated 200 hours a year because, like I said, if you spend 30 minutes a day times 2 people,
And something
squandering
so
that time,
right?
And you do that 3 times a week. Over time, it turns into a lot of time that you've squandered.
And I know this is something that I personally struggle with. Right now, I mean, my default would be like, let's go to Taco Bell
but then there's a consequence, right?
There is a consequence.
You're taking resources, financial resources that you may have already
allocated, and now you're reallocating. So it's just one stressor causes another stressor that causes another stressor. But if you've had your strategy plan, just like you would do it on the shop floor, just like you do in the office,
and there are discretionary resources in our budget at home.
Because there needs to be.
And my wife and I have put spending thresholds in place. We are both empowered to make spending decisions up to X. And then anything over that is a conversation.
It's a leadership meeting. It's just like it would be at work.
Because we have to work together to solve whatever it is.
And it has nothing to do with not trusting somebody, not having a true partnership. It has to do with respecting and ensuring that you guys are maintaining your vision and mission, that you've set yourself up to be successful as a family unit.
Yep. And those systems build over time. They build a level of trust that it's like, I know that whatever you were dealing with in the moment, those circumstances, you were ready for it and you knew it had to be done. You don't need to check with me. Just do it. It's the same advice you'd give a high-performing leader at work.
Right. Sometimes you just have to make the decision. You don't know all the answers. But that's manufacturing, that's operations.
Bias
logistics.
for action. Yep.
Yes, that's what it is. It
bias
is
for action.
Bias for action. It's having a backbone. It's disagreeing. It's committing, and it's owning it.
100%.
Wow. I told you this is the fun stuff to me because, we sit. Just recently, I attended a conference, and leaders go on stage. Particularly, this one was focused on women. Okay. So you have a bunch of females that are on stage, talking about the hardships that women face in the workforce, prioritizing family and all of these things. And there will be people that don't like that I'm going to make my next comment. But this is what we talk about on here. It's called Talk Real Shift. For me, it's not so much about being a woman and being up there and sharing the story and sharing the struggle. Mm-hmm. It is about that you're a person. And whether you're a man or a woman, there's only a set number of hours in the day, like you said, right? And you can't have an expectation, regardless of your gender, regardless of how you identify any of these things, that you can be a parent that takes your kid to school and picks your kid up from school and attends all these activities. And you get to do the executive high-level C-suite, and you get to have work-life balance, and you get to have me time at the end of the night. That, to me, doesn't have anything to do with man or woman. It has to do with the fact that we are human beings. There's only so much time in the day. But I was very disappointed because sometimes I just want somebody to talk real with me and be like, you've been told you can have work-life balance, and it's false. You have to make trade-offs, right? And now what we predominantly see is that men have historically chosen the career path, right? Women have historically chosen the family path. Neither is right, neither is wrong. Stereotypes exist or perceptions exist for a reason. There's all different kinds of barriers that still need to be broken for equality in the workplace. We won't go there. But when you're having these conversations, are you having to share similar things that you can't expect to have equality in both places because there's not enough time?
What we've landed on in my household is that, as you said, work-life balance is a myth. The real objective is work-life blending.
Ah, okay. Work-life blending.
So I've had opportunities to travel for work. Well, can we turn that into also a family vacation? Can we do a both and? So my son is a huge Pokemon fan. He loves Pokemon, and I had an opportunity to go to Japan. So I told him, I said, hey, this is a once in a great while opportunity. Right. It's not every day you go to Asia for work. This is not normal. Right. this is an opportunity. Do you want to take advantage of it? And he was like, I would love to go to Akihabara, which is like the Pokemon capital of Japan. He said, I would love to go. Well, that required a conversation with my wife because I'm going to be at work. I will be able to join them in the evenings. I'll be able to spend, if we stay over a weekend, I can spend the time that way. Right. But, he can't run around Tokyo unsupervised. Like, this is not going to work.
Right.
So we were able to create an opportunity to blend work life and provide a core memory for my son while I was working. So this is one way that we found a way to get work-life blending to be something that satisfies the obligations that we've made to my employer,
right? But
also give me the chance to provide an opportunity to my household. So this is one thing. The other one that I would probably point to is sometimes you have to say no, and you have to be prepared to take the consequences for that.
On either side.
On either side.
The call-off process is broken. Say goodbye to inconsistent communication. Absenteeism, no call, no shows. Say hello to TeamSense, the only text-first and fully automated attendance reporting system. Reduce absenteeism by up to 40%. Employees simply text and select the reason for their absence. No app required. Supervisors are instantly notified so they can quickly adapt to fill shifts. Data syncs automatically to your records, making it easier for HR and ops teams to track trends and stay ahead of workforce planning. And when you need to get the word out, you know everyone will see it. Reach 100% of your employees for the first time ever. TeamSense also syncs automatically with your tech stack so that you can easily manage everything in one place. We're trusted by leading companies who have seen up to 50% reduction in no-call, no-shows. Discover how you can transform your absence reporting and employee communication today. TeamSense. Call-offs made simple.
And I think that a lot of people forget that there's a choice. They can make a choice. Mm-hmm. There is a choice. Anyone who feels trapped or feels like there's no way out or that they are shackled to, whether at home or at work, that it's just there's no way out, that's fundamentally a reflection that there's no system in place, that you've put yourself in a position where you're completely a victim of circumstance. That is a symptom where work-life blending isn't happening, work-life balance isn't happening, work-life nothing is happening. Right? There's nothing happening there because the mental model right out of the gate is I'm trapped, I'm a prisoner, I have no way out. Right. Anyone that's ever hustled in the shop floor knows you can work your way out of just about any emergency or travesty or...
You learn to pivot. When there's a will, there's a way. You figure it out, and you have to be able to do. You
grind it and you get out of it, and then you have the after action review, and you prevent it from happening again.
You do your 5 why analysis, your fishbone, what have you.
So these are things that also
your countermeasure,
right? And sometimes those decisions, don't be afraid to try to do work-life blending, but if it doesn't work, talk some real shift about that and say. This didn't work. Right. If we did it again, it took us, that Japan trip was the product of 10 other work-life blending opportunities that didn't go so well because it wasn't just the day at work. It was the social stuff that had to happen after. I had to dine with the plant manager. I had to go.
Right.
You were working. There were other social obligations that came after the workday ended. And so those first few work-life blending opportunities, it took us a few to get there. But once we dialed it in,
right?
Because the people at work also had to realize, well, Joe's away from his everything normal. He's away from his normal.
Right.
He's here, and he's not here because everything's going great. Right?
We typically don't travel
for
work when things are hunky-dory.
I'm from corporate.
Right?
I'm here to help. Like that's not the mantra. Like
no,
you're called
you're coming
there.
In
you're called there because you're needed there.
Yeah.
Your skills, your ability, your leadership are needed there, but that requires you to leave your normal. And I used to tell, the fastest way to get me out of this plant is to get this thing fixed because I'm motivated to get back to my normal, and you're motivated to get me out of your shop.
Which is fair. I used to say the same thing when I would show up at some of the 3P locations, and I'd be like, if I'm here, it's not a good sign. Like, you don't want to see this again. Because if I'm coming in, I'm taking over, and I'm going to show you what's not going right.
Yep.
And we're going to get you on course really quickly because I want to get home. That's interesting. So it just comes back to those same principles, right? When something doesn't work, we regroup very quickly with a little bit of information.
Mm-hmm.
We take risk and we reiterate, right? And we're constantly doing the 5 why analysis. We're constantly trying to say, okay, what's going to be our countermeasure? What can we put in place to prevent this from happening again? But we're not doing those same things at home.
Nope.
And we have to be willing to say no. Because you can't have it all.
You have to stretch those things out over time to get them all done. I can't stress enough, I'm an opportunity addict.
Okay.
Like I see an opportunity, it's like, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And I have to either, and that's what my wife does as a leader in our household, is she reminds me that as an opportunity addict,
just because you can do it
doesn't mean you should, and doesn't mean right now is the time.
Right.
It's not now.
Interesting.
Because I also value completion, as so does she. Like that's where we come back to. We value completion. Neither of us, it's an anxiety-inducing thing for us to have 15 things half done. That's like an anxiety-inducing thing in the house. So we both value completion. So her alignment with me is when I start to turn into an opportunity addict, I need a project so that I'm not chasing
something.
Here.
You've got a project to come home to. You have an opportunity
that I can chase and be specific about it. And that's how Homegrown Leadership, quite frankly, was born, because it was like the side hustle.
Right.
And it's like, you need to double down on this. You're getting traction. People need it. It's working. What would it take to prioritize this? What would have to go on the stop-do list to make Homegrown Leadership something that's higher priority? It was actually her idea. And that's what good leaders do. They lift other leaders up. They help each other. That's high-functioning teamwork. When a team member sees another team member's potential and they draw it out and they provide the support that's necessary for them to reach that potential, that's what Homegrown Leadership looks like.
Joe, I'm almost at a loss for words, because it's so true, right? It's everything you're saying in work, whether you're on the floor or you're in the boardroom or you're somewhere in between, right? Good leaders lift up others. They give the win to the team. They single-handedly own the failures, right? If my team failed, I would be furious and upset, not because, and I shouldn't say my team failed, when it was perceived that my team failed.
Right.
Because that was my failure. They didn't own that. I should have made a different decision as the leader. I should have recognized it sooner. I should have saw the signs, right? I should have been able to do something to guide the team in a different direction. And that same thing happens with your partner at home. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a partner, one of the things that I want to make sure that, I wasn't always a parent, mm-hmm. but I have had to help care for a parent. And that's just as difficult, right? Whether you have a partner next to you or you don't have a partner next to you, every aspect of your life, mm-hmm. you can treat just like the shop floor.
Yes. There are ways to address life. And we've all had a lot of training, a lot of skill development, a lot of education, those are things that go in the toolbox for life, not just for work. And to the extent that they're useful, and yes, you can modify them for the situation. It's not a direct one-to-one.
No.
But
nothing hardly ever is.
But, if you ran around your house and looked at the major pieces of equipment in your house, the dishwasher, the washing machine, the water tank, the HVAC, make a list.
Right.
You could say, if this one failed, what would be the severity of that failure?
Right. What's your CapEx plan?
How frequent? What's the frequency? If I'm constantly fixing the furnace, well, now I have to sit there and say, is it time to make an investment over here? And those are decisions we make every day at work. Those are things we do all the time. And the tools exist, and there's and I truly believe that the more we can strengthen household leadership, the stronger we can make all of our communities, our businesses, because people will help each other. The leadership sphere of influence just grows, and this is also something that happened to me. I'm the mayor of my city, and I came to that office because people trusted me because they saw how my household ran.
Right.
They're like, this guy knows what he's doing. This family seems to have it together, right? They have this appearance. Is it really? Well, when you look under the hood, it's really there. Like we let our yes be yes and our no be no. We are all in when we say we're going to do something. We work hard. We do the things that we say. We live our mission and values. And that is something that people are dying for in their public leadership. And so this is something where, and not that everybody will be called to that, but the fact that the community trusts me enough to make decisions on their behalf, on the behalf of their household, that is something that is gratifying beyond any accomplishment I think I've ever had in the shop. As gratifying as it is to see something start running or to launch a new line or to build a new plant, all the things that I've had the privilege of doing at work, the most gratifying leadership experience has been the trust of my neighbors to make big decisions on their behalf for the community that we live in. That's been huge.
It's different because you don't typically think about everything outside of the workplace.
Right, it's compartmentalized, right? We put it on a shelf.
I mean, I told somebody a couple episodes ago, I said, I was very naive early on in my career because as a leader, I'm 23 years old out on the floor. It took me 12, 15 years to figure it out. But I used to be like, cool, we've all got problems. Leave them at the door. Don't care. Like you want to put your laundry list against my laundry list? Okay. Like, let's talk about abuse in every form. Let's talk about a failing home life. Let's talk about a parent dying. Let's talk about blah, 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 right? Like, in our minds, what we have going on is the worst of anybody else.
Yep.
Now, do you kind of mentor your clients into saying, like, hey, you should share some of these vulnerable moments with your team, some of these real life moments to make them relatable?
I mean, that's situational. I definitely think that when someone on your team is struggling, there are some simple things that can be done to be relatable, deepen the relationship to where you get the trust. Because not every leader in the workplace can develop the kind of one-on-one relationship with every single team member, especially if you occupy a certain level in the organization.
Fair.
It's difficult.
Yep.
There are certain relational anchors that can be established in any conversation or with any person in the organization. It just takes intentional effort to do that, and it's no different than building a new business relationship. Hey, Devin. Oh, I see you're married. How'd you meet your husband? Where'd you guys meet? Where'd you honeymoon? How you have kids? Oh, tell me about your kids. Like, these are things we do in business to build relationships because business is relational.
It is.
It is relational. Yes. And people want to do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And so it is the same. So the mentoring really is, if it's something that just requires some relational anchoring, most of the time the leader already has that. It's just an unused tool. It's the shiny, brand new, unused tool in the toolbox. Because leadership is situational. There's a time for command and control, and then there's a time for, okay, this needs to be something a little bit softer.
Right.
I need a velvet hammer, not a jackhammer. So we're going to take a different tactic here, and this is my first time really engaging with this person one-on-one. They've kind of been in the room, or I've noticed them. I know their face. I know their name. I know how long they've been here. I know what they do.
But you don't know them.
But I don't really know them. So I need to invest a little bit of time to put some relational anchors in place so that as a two-way street, I can come to them and they can come to me. So this is sometimes what it is. Now, if it's something deeper, like if the dysfunction is something that requires an employee assistance program or HR or therapist, there's real trauma there. There's an off-ramp for that because there are people who are
more qualified,
trained, and can deal with that stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's sometimes what happens, and it's a two-way street there too. A therapist will call me and say, Joe, this person doesn't have trauma. They just have no system. Can you take this? I'm not going to charge them for therapy. They don't need therapy. They need a system. I might say this person has systems, but there's some bad stuff here they got to deal with. That needs to go over here. But when it comes to my clients, typically it's all about creating the relational anchors and using what they already know how to do because they didn't get to where they are without doing that work.
Right.
That's how they got there.
They're good at something.
They were good, right.
Yeah.
And they were respected for it.
Yeah.
So how do we, again, open the toolbox? Oh, there's a shiny new one there. Today's the day we're going to use that. We're going to take it for a spin, right? Machinery, things are made to work, made to run. They're not made to sit. A piece of machinery, a piece of equipment, your car, whatever, if it sits, it won't start. You got to go out and start it. You got to drive it around. You got to use it. It's made to be used. Leadership tools are the same. If you acquire them and never use them, where's the value?
You said something earlier. There's a time to know when to have a sledgehammer, and there's a time to know when you need to use a velvet hammer. And that is ever so true in the workplace, but also very much so outside of the workplace. Let's talk some shift about that. Tell me more about when you use the sledgehammer versus the velvet.
Yeah. So at home, there's clearly opportunities for both situations to arise. And this is mostly in relationship with my children. Part of the responsibility of having authority is imposing boundaries and enforcing consequences.
Yes.
This is part of the burden of leadership is now you're responsible. So, and to your earlier point, if my son hits a baseball through a window, he's not going to be held responsible for that. This guy's going to be responsible for that. Or my wife, if she happens to be the leader on deck, the manager on shift, right? She's the one's got to deal with it, or I've got to deal with it. And there was a point, I'll share a short story. My son didn't understand that. He's like, but I broke the window. And I'm like, yeah, but you're my kid. I'm the adult. So the way the system works is if you do something, your mother and I are held responsible for that.
Right.
And it really, that at first it didn't understand that. But I noticed that after he kind of got it, he carried himself differently because he realized that his behavior reflected,
I'm more than just him.
I'm more than just him. And so it is at work. When you're a member of our team, when you're a member of this organization, you'll carry yourself a certain way. You'll present yourself a certain way, especially if the customer's standing there.
Absolutely, which is a whole different thing, right?
The customer doesn't care if you're the manufacturing person or the product person or the salesperson. Your paycheck has the same logo on it. You're all the same. You're all the same team. But back to at home, those opportunities when the consequences come is where you have to be selective about which version of the hammer you drop. Just like at work. The first time, okay, how'd this go wrong? What can we do different? You have a coaching conversation. Then the next one is, well, we talked about this before. We did some things to prevent this from happening again. So what, did we miss something?
Right.
One more coaching conversation. Okay, then the next one is, we've talked about this twice. This is a real problem. Now it's going to be a consequence.
Now we're going to start putting you on a PIP?
Now we're, not for nothing. So my daughter, when she got old enough, she wanted to get a car. We had a car that was not being used, or we had one that was well loved, and it was time for my wife or I to take the well loved one and pass it along and do something else. So we gave my daughter favorable terms, knowing that if she went to a dealership, she wouldn't get the same
right.
treatment as she was getting from us. But we wrote all that down, and not unlike a PIP, like, you're responsible if something happens when you're driving this car. Well, sure enough, she rear-ended another driver. I said, well, here's the deductible. Well, how am I supposed to? We were very clear. We were very clear here. You would make payments on this car that you would get to drive, that I own. And if something happens, you're responsible for it. Now, you can take care of it up front. I can tack it on to your payments. I can refi it into your loan.
Ooh, very nice.
So, and this didn't require, but I had to stand my ground, right? My daughter, my firstborn child, the girl, the only other woman who owns a piece of my heart, besides my wife, is looking at me like, I need your help. And I had to stand there and keep that boundary and say, this is what we agreed, and this is what happened, and now you have to feel the consequence.
Right.
Because if I don't do this, I'm not being a good leader.
Right.
And that was a little bit less of a velvet hammer and more of a jackhammer, because I had to say no.
It's hard.
Emphatically no.
Yeah.
And so those are occasions where the tough love department gets activated and brought in to kind of settle. So that's one flavor. The other flavor is when you're talking to other households.
Oh. Okay.
So there's an opportunity when you're dealing with your neighbors, or other people in leadership. Mm-hmm. We are in these situations all the time. On the PTA, on the homeowners association, there are other leaders in the room.
Right.
Well, you tell me, Devin, when you're going to go into a meeting where there's a counter argument that is real, valid counter argument backed up with facts, there's data there, and you're going to come in with the opposing point, what do you do when you prepare for that meeting? What are you trying to bring with you to the maximum extent possible to sway the decision in your favor? Leverage. You try to find leverage. And that is another tool for using a varying degree of a hammer, is if we're going to go toe-to-toe with other leaders, is there leverage?
Right.
Is my argument more convincing? Because it's not always about leverage. Sometimes you might have the superior argument. Recency, there's different factors. But that having leverage is a hammer. Leverage is a huge hammer. And you can carry that hammer with you at home as much as you can at work. And I'm not saying that in a diabolical way. It's just, if you are the most prepared and you have the most information and you have the most trust and if you have all those intangible resources maximized, your influence is peaked. And now you can drop a hammer. And then after,
knowing when to drop it.
And then after, you say, I don't ever want that to happen again. I don't like doing that. Mm-hmm. The amount of authority a leader has is inversely proportional to the amount that they use it. The less you use your authority, the more authority you have. So the times where you have to use it, it's important that you follow up that conversation and say, I don't ever want that to happen again. What do we have to do different to avoid that? And that's
the key.
That's what most leaders miss, right? They leave feeling strong because they won.
But it's not about the win.
There you have it. Not always.
Yeah.
We live in a competitive sphere. Like, this is where we compete all the time. We grind, we compete. This is what we do. So it feels good to win. But you
got to bring the team along with you.
Correct.
Whether that's the team at work or that's the team
100%
at home.
100%.
My daughter the other day told me, we were talking about veterans, and she had the audacity to tell me that she had no freedom. I was describing to her what a veteran, what a veteran is and what they do so that we have the freedom that we have. And she told me, I have no freedom. She said, you dictate everything. And I was like, well, let's like wind that backwards, right? Let's talk about all the freedom that you do have and the choices that you get to make. Mm-hmm. And when you choose to make choices there are consequences, whether those are good consequences, right, which we would call a reward, or those are negative consequences that lead to opportunities, as we like to call them in the plant, right? It's an opportunity. You get to make choices. You have the freedom to be able to make those choices. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it is my position to enforce those consequences, and you just don't happen to like them all of the time. But, I say that to say that as we're talking through, some of these things, you relate it to how you would coach and counsel an employee.
Yes.
Right? And for me, I think of documenting. And, my daughter's in therapy, and we've got we do the sticker charts and all these other things,
of
right?
course.
And for whatever reason, it just now clicked as we sit here. That's her form of documentation, right? It is, the sticker charts are the same thing that we do with our employees. We're just documenting it in a way that's relatable for them.
And age appropriate.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yes. Absolutely age appropriate.
Shocking.
It is kind of shocking, right? Because it clicked, and I'm like, what else can I take I've done as a leader?
You'll never see it the same.
And reapply in a different perspective for a 7-year-old or a 15-year-old and make it so that it makes sense, right? Because I wouldn't allow one of my employees to get away with destroying the culture because they're not meeting expectations, right? Because that's ultimately what happens, right? People that don't meet expectations, albeit for one reason or another, it ends up ultimately destroying your culture.
Yep.
And the same thing happens at home,
Yep.
whether it's a friend or it's a family member or it's a child. Their behavior can destroy the culture. And the same thing with adults too, right? If we make bad choices, we can destroy that family culture, that dynamic.
Yes.
How do you course correct that culture at home?
Well, this is something that, a lot of leaders struggle with because at work, it is, you have an ultimate option. People can be removed from the organization. At home, this is a different story.
Very different. Sometimes we do want to remove people.
You sometimes do. And, there are times where I think, like my daughter's 19, you said you have a 15-year-old at home. Sometimes I have that discussion and say, you have a choice. You can choose to be somewhere else where you have all the freedom to come and go as you please, to eat whatever you want, to whatever. You can do that. But if you stay here, and she's seen the family values, she's seen she knows how we run the household. It's very clear. It's not new. Not new at all. But the course correction for folks is just like I would advise a leader at work. Have you elevated out of this long enough to really think about it and figure out what's causing it? Have you thought about the circumstances that are crafting that path and making it something to fall into? Are there things that can be changed in the environment to avoid that? Because sometimes it's about the environment. It's not about the actual the actions of the leader. Sometimes it's just the environment we've set up for ourselves.
Right.
Like, I make the coffee pot the night before because when I wake up in the morning, that's not a task I want to deal with. Right? James Clear, Atomic Habits, right? You change, you think about your future self.
Yep.
You take your current self and you do something for your future self that they'll be thankful for. And whether it's putting your clothes out the night before, getting the coffee pot ready, making your lunch for the next day, it's the same tactic, elevating out and saying, is there a circumstance I can alter? Is there a variable I can change? Is this really behavioral? If so, what does Deming tell us about behavior? The system, it's happening because the system allows it. The problem is not the people. The problem is the system. The system is producing a result it's been optimized to provide. If you want different behavior, change the system.
Change the system.
Change the system. So this is this is like the sound bite.
Right.
But unpacking that, it's an exercise. Because to put your mind on your household system or lack thereof and acknowledge that and sit there and analyze it, it's not unlike a strategic planning exercise at work where it's homework.
Right.
To sit there and think about that.
Right.
Well, this system has just organically, it wasn't intentional. Just things land the way they land.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way things are done around here. It's the culture of the organization.
It's the way things have always been done.
It's the culture.
We've always been doing it.
It's the culture
like
here,
so
right?
long.
You're not going to change that.
Right.
Well, leaders have the authority to change the systems in place. If they conflict with the values, well, now you have to have a different conversation. But a system should be in place to support the mission, vision, values of the organization. And the minute you detect a system is not doing that, your obligation as a leader is to modify that system. It is your absolute responsibility.
And it's no different than what we do on the floor, right?
Correct.
Are there engineering changes that we can make ultimately to prevent this, right? Is there training? Is there all these different kinds of things that you go through, your hierarchy of change and influence that you can make? I need to be doing the same thing at home.
Well, that's a common reaction. I can't believe that we do it all day, every day.
That's what
and then we come home and we just take it off like a coat and we hang it up and it's like, okay, so what are we doing here? What's the deal now?
Right. And then we waste that 30 minutes, that 200 hours a year.
Or more.
That's
just one decision. One. How many more decisions like that are draining us of our time? Mm-hmm. The one resource we cannot make more of, the one resource we can't replace, the one resource we get to use once
is our time. Because people might be our most expensive and our highest risk commodity, whether at home or at work. But the one factor, the one variable that dictates everything is time.
Yep.
Joe, this has been phenomenal. I am certainly going to go home and bust out a notebook and do a little bit of how can I be a better mom, a better, partner, a better friend by applying what I naturally would do at work to my personal life. But before we go, I got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
If you could go back and talk to 25-year-old you, what would you say or what would you do differently?
I would definitely tell my 25-year-old self, your life will never be less complicated than it is right now.
We do think that, though, don't we? Like, if I just get to this point, it'll get easier. It never gets easier. It just changes.
Your life will never be less complicated than it is right now. And in 6 months, you're going to get to have 1 of 2 conversations with yourself. Boy, am I glad I got that done. Or boy, I could have had that done by now. And you get to pick which of those 2 conversations you get to have with yourself. And the other thing I would say is, as a young father, I would say, take the time to get aligned with your other household leaders first. Even though one person might be highly skilled in leadership, it's like we've been talking about, you have to bring the team with you. And, I've got a webinar that talks about what matters most. I bring tools to that webinar to have people fill out, hey, if you've never thought about what matters most in your household, this is the 1 hour that's going to change your life. You're going to sit here and you're going to identify those things and you're going to figure out how to translate those things into goals. And for Talk Real Shift listeners, I'd like to invite them to that webinar to do that work. If you and your spouse or you and your partner or you and your household have never had that alignment in your C-suite about what matters most, this 1 hour will start you on a leadership transformation journey in your household that will absolutely claw back your time, claw back your money, and give you the fulfillment and the pride and the peace that we all want our households to be. So homegrownleadership.net/WMM for what matters most, and use code REALSHIFT to get that webinar. It's like $29, and you'll get everything you need to start your leadership transformation journey in that 1 hour.
I love it. That was going to be my next question. What advice do you have for our listeners? But you already did it. So I'm going to go on there, and we're going to do this at home, because I think we need to do this at home so we can better support each other, because we know our strengths. I think inherently as leaders, particularly out on the floor, you take leadership training after leadership training after leadership training, right? You know, it doesn't matter if it's Clifton or it's Briggs or what have you, right? We've done all the colors and all the animals.
Yep.
And we don't want to focus on our weaknesses. We want to focus on our strengths. 100%. We want to be aware of our weaknesses, so we utilize our strengths to compensate for those. But we also have to utilize our strengths to support the other leaders in our household.
Yes.
And this webinar will help us to facilitate and to start having that conversation.
It's the very
change
first
the
thing.
Trajectory.
It's the starting point. Alignment among the leaders, because if you just start communicating and you're both
going in other directions,
it's not going to work. The very first thing is, what do we value the most? When we make our commitments, we say yes, we do them, and we're all in for them. And if we can't, we say no. Or if we overextended, we make it right.
And we own it. We own it.
That's the toolbox for household leadership. Implementing it, we do that all the time. We just have to be intentional. We have to decide that it's not just what's best for us personally, it's what's best for our household, it's what's best for our neighborhoods, our communities, our cities, our states, the nation. This kind of leadership is going to be transformational in so many ways, and I'm so excited to share it with you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Devin.
And until next time, see you on the floor.